Konnichiwa and hi everyone. Welcome to Hot Minute with Horizon. I'm your host, Brian Decano. Hot Minute is the official podcast of the Horizon Group that's created to provide you with the latest news and information about Horizon, our solutions, and global finishing trends. We want to keep things short and sweet, so let's jump right in. Welcome, I'm joined today by JD Mackey, Senior Service Engineer at Standard Finishing, which is our North American distributing partner. So today I want to talk about folding because JD is actually very knowledgeable and he seems to like our folders, right, JD?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
So thank you for joining me today.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
So before we begin, maybe we can start off with a simple introduction about yourself and maybe your career background.
Okay. I started when I was in high school working in print shops and binderies, working primarily on bindery equipment, did some press repair along the way too, printing. But basically I've been doing bindery most of my career. So for 42 years, I've been in one form or another working on bindery.
And you didn't figure that out until you started preparing for this podcast, right?
Right, yeah, I did the math and figured out I'm a lot older than I thought I was, yeah. Yeah, it's good to know. Thank you for that.
Well, I'm sorry about that, but it's good to know how much experience you have. Because you worked at a sub-dealer before you came to Standard, right?
Yeah, before I actually came on board with Horizon, I was working for one of Horizon's dealers in the US. So,
and that was over 20 years, 30 years?
Yeah, it was about 30 years I worked for them. And then at one point I had my own business doing bindery repair in New England for, I think about 5 or 6 years. I left the dealer and I did it on my own. And my dealer brought me back. So
that's great. And now you're with Standard.
Now I'm with Standard. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So you don't work with just folders, right? But
no.
Originally you started with folders or with binders?
Okay. With Standard, I started where I was going to be local service, just doing general bindery equipment, just doing sort of everything. And then within a few months, it turned into, I took on the role of their product specialist regarding folders. And then I've also had a lot of experience working on your bindery equipment or binder equipment. So I've also been starting to share a lot of my responsibilities as far as the folding goes and taking on more and more responsibilities with the smart binding lines.
Great. So you mentioned the folders. When did you start getting involved with folders? When did you start learning about folders?
When I was 15, an old lady taught me how to run my first folder. She was very nice. But I've been running them since I was 15. So folders have come a long way since then.
And I hear that you like our Horizon folders. So
very much. Yeah.
And you've also worked with other manufacturers' folders as well?
Yeah, I've actually done, the company I worked for, Service General, so they'd work on other people's equipment.
Yeah. And I hear that one of your favorite folders is the AFV 56 FKT.
Yeah. That thing's awesome.
So tell us, why do you like this folder?
So the predecessor to that folder was the AKT. Yeah. And that was a great folder, super popular. Training on it, the training on it was fairly simple to get operators to understand what to do. The complications came in with that, with how much was still actually manual, like having to hand mount side guides or stops into the knife fold sections or section. There was still a lot of things that you had to either manually adjust or physically look at, like the tail wheels. And so it was still tricky for operators with no experience to get. For operators that had experience, this thing was a gift. It did everything they wanted to do. They had to do very little manually, and they were so used to doing things manually that they were thrilled. The new machine took everything I think any operator, customer, or technician ever said and sent you guys a note on and said, well, it'd be nice if, or it'd be better if this wasn't this way, or it would be simpler for the operators if they didn't have to look here or adjust this by eye.
So you saw a lot of your requests.
Yeah.
That Horizon, they actually listened to it.
And they saw all of them, which is really weird. You send notes in and you don't really expect people are going to pay any attention. And to get a machine when that machine got released and came in, we all just sat there playing with it going, look, the stop's solid now, where it used to be a finger and dent sheets. All the guides set automatically. There's no more manual adjustment. There's even On super finicky jobs, you'd have to dial in tail wheels manually or by eye and see. And there was techniques to doing it that could trip up an operator. Now you hit a button and it goes into this whole cycle where it automatically, comes in and out until it finds a perfect spot. And then now the machine, the FKT, it's fully automated. There is nothing in there that's not automated, including all the things that are becoming current on other folders as well, but where they put in vacuum belts instead of dragging marbles over the stock, which on current printing methods tend to mark more and more and more and more. So giving that vacuum control and simplifying things where everything's book of one or data stream sensitive. So now if I get a double on something at full speed on that machine, I can be running 200 meters a minute, running 37,000 sheets an hour on a letter fold, and it'll pull a double and it will literally stop right on the middle of the register board where I just lift it up, I take it out. The machine's super intuitive. So when, say, that double situation happens, it'll stop right where I can still take those sheets out. When I lift the cover, it lifts all the guides out of my way. And then it also lowers my feeder back down 6 inches so I can just take the sheets and put them back on the pile and maintain that order or that mail stream. And then when you hit go, it just brings everything back up. It waits and then turns on the air. All little things, but as far as making a really smooth operation, you're able to jump around quickly and make the machine perform really well without having to do very much as far as the operator.
Yeah, you can get operators up and running really quickly. I believe the first time we met was at Printing United, 2022. And just watching you kind of show people the machine itself, you were having them run it and kind of explaining it. So people that had just come to the show and saw it there, within 5 minutes, they were able to set up the job.
Yeah, it's, and some of those jobs, like to do a small format map, so an accordion fold, say a 7-panel accordion fold, folded in half again to make a pocket map or a small map, is one of the hardest folds you can get in a folder, because once you dial in all the fold plates, if you have to make any changes, you have to redial every fold plate in. One of the things the Horizon has is you hit one button, enter a difference, because all the fold plates will be exact one behind the other. All your panels will line up perfectly, but it might be a long tail or a short tail depending on the speed of the machine. In this case, all you have to do is measure that tail, enter one measurement, and it automatically adjusts 6 fold plates. So it's particularly impressive when somebody who's run a folder actually comes to watch, and then you show them this fold and go, okay, how long would this take? And I've never had anyone argue it. 3 to 4 hours. It's a half-day setup. By the time you dial an old folder in, or even some of the newer competitors in, being able to just go to that button, hit jump and go, being able to do that fold in about a minute, that setup in about a minute. One customer brought his daughter to Print United last year, and she was like 16. I said, do you work in your dad's shop? She said, yeah. I said, you work on the folder? She just shook her head like I was insane. No, I don't run those. I said, well, come here. And I stepped her up, and I started her on here, push this. And then I turned around to get something. And when I heard the console start beeping, because she was doing things all by herself. I turned around and go, what are you doing? She said, well, I'd ask questions. I'm just answering it. I'm like, well, there you go. Now you know how to run a Horizon folder. And she set up the pocket map. Her father almost fell over. He's like, oh, okay. So
great. That's an awesome story. It kind of shows how much of a lifesaver it will be for people upcoming in the future, I think, because it's getting harder and harder for print shops to find people that can operate folders. I mean, it's sad that that knowledge is kind of going away, but at the same time, there's nothing that's gonna make it go back in time. So we can only keep going, but having this automation will be able to allow print shops to kind of survive without the extremely knowledgeable operators.
When I do demos with the machine, one of the things I like to point out is I'll do maybe 10 different setups. One, it takes like a minute for each setup, especially if they're in the memory. And I'll blast off these setups and then talk to the customer. It isn't how fast a folder runs. It's a very fast folder. But all folders are very fast. It's not that's saving money or saving them time. It's the fact that I can do those 10 setups. If you say this one, let's say this setup was a half hour, this one was a half hour, this one, let's say an hour, and I'm staying under what it likely is. Let's say this one was 3 hours. I'll say, so easily I just saved you 1 day of your week. So you just got a whole day of time back into your shop. Like literally you gained a day of time. It's not the speed of the machine, which is very fast. It's the speed of setup and the ease of setup on our machine. That's the difference when you go to work on a competitor's machine. Yeah, one has pluses and minuses, everything has a plus and minus to it. But none of those machines' automation can touch the Horizon, none of them. I mean, I know how to use them all, I know how to work on them all, I know how to run all their operator interfaces. But the fact is to go, to do what you can do on the Horizon, it's much more complicated to do it on their systems. It's not nearly as intuitive. One, the Horizon is made for how an operator looks at it. Operators used to looking at that picture of the rollers and full plates glued to the side of every folder ever made. It shows the roller chain. And that's how you have to think and figure things out. So they give you a picture there. Horizon's put that into the screen and then given each adjustment for each one of those things right there. So any operator who's even run a folder a little can look at that and quickly understand. But even more importantly, it's easy for a new operator to understand now because it's right there and the adjustments are right there. You go to a competitor's machine, none of them tried to build a folder and just keep the automation growing. They've sort of played catch up when they realized people really wanted automation. The way they've done the system, it's more just enter into a shadow box a number. You need to know what that is. The diagrams aren't so intuitive where you look at it and go, oh, that's literally a drawing of this, that's literally a drawing of this. So it's much harder to get through. But more importantly, none of it's intuitive. So if you want to move, make a move on the register guide on our folder, and you tell that register guide to go towards the non-op side of the machine, which is going to push your score, make other changes you would without going. It'll intuitively know to move the outside guide, to move the next full plate, to move both the guides in the FKT. It knows if you're doing this, then we need to do all of this too. So the operator doesn't have to think and figure that out. When any other system, they have to actually go in and make every one of those adjustments individually. Huge thing for trying to teach people how to do this.
Speaking of new operators and everything, so what would you recommend for people who are trying to get into folding?
You know what, if you're really trying to learn folding and you're trying to get an understanding of it more than just the automation on a machine, there's literature out there that sort of gets you a basic understanding, but there's not going to be anything better than working with, all these, people my age or older that are sort of aging out, spending time with them to understand why the machine does what it does and what's really happening inside the machine where you can't see. Other equipment like saddle binders or perfect binders, you can kind of follow it along and watch what happens. And in a folder, you can't. Everything happens inside, and it's not like you can have a little hole that's going to see in there or anything. You just have to take the piece and then look at it and make decisions to why it happened. There's tricks involved where you can separate, is it rollers, is it register, is it a full plate? But that's the stuff that, gaining the experience from an operator is helpful. Fortunately, I know with Horizon and with our, with Standard in the US, we have people qualified to go out and show them that stuff. So we're able to teach people when they buy a piece of our equipment, not just what buttons to press, but why and what's really happening and how to get the folder to do some more advanced things that maybe they don't really understand. So.
Very good piece of advice. Respect those that are a little older than you. Show them some respect.
Yeah. You notice I'm saying that now that I'm one of the older people. When I was younger, I never said, try. I just said, I can do better than them and tried to prove it and failed or didn't.
Well, that's how you got your own knowledge.
Let's hope so, yeah. That's how I justified being a jerk for all those years to old people. So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming here and sharing some of your knowledge with me. One last question. What's one Horizon related thing that you're looking forward to?
I'm really looking forward to seeing the changes they made when they revamped the old version of the 566 AFC and turned it into the 566 FKT. they really, the job they did is incredible of taking up, bringing in that level of automation and really showing that they've been listening to the customer and realizing that the industry is changing to where they really need, the automation needs to be more and more intuitive. I'm looking forward to them doing that now with the AFC Summit 4.6. I like the folder, it's a good folder, but boy, if they make this level of changes to that machine, it should be everything else.
ありがとうございました. Thank you for joining us in this episode of Hot Minute with Horizon. If you have any questions or topic requests, please send us an email and we'll see if we can introduce it in a future episode. Until next time, stay happy, healthy, and finish first with Horizon.